Alright, here we go. Let's start it off like this. So that's analog synthesizer right there. I tracked all this last night on top of some existing guitar parts. What do y'all think about Behringer stuff? That's a Behringer Boog Poly D Mini Moog clone. It sounds great. Let's keep listening. Hold on. So that's just the stems from the synth part I played over. I already had guitar, bass, kabasa parts. I'm getting ready to do drums on this song, and that's just the synth stem for this new song I'm working on. Let me play it from the beginning, because there's another cool part at the beginning, but I wanted it to have that dramatic feel, and that was like a middle section. Let's listen to this. So this is all analog synthesizer, no sound library, MIDI stuff. This is a real synthesizer. And I'm not the best keys player in the world, but it works. And it sounds really good in the track. I love that low end that the synth get. I think that part's got a little bit of filter freak on it. Great sound voice plug-in. I was doing part of it with the filters on the synth, but I wanted a little bit more, so I put some filter freak. Alright, so I was getting my son in bed, and things went a little bit longer. We're going to record some guitar. I was going to do it with the real amp. I did a couple tests real quick, and I don't want to run too hot into the DAW, because the way I'm going to do this, you're not going to be monitoring when I'm playing in. You're going to hear it through the DAW on playback only, and you're going to be monitoring like I am direct to get with this recording stuff. But before we start that, I wanted to there's something I wanted to touch on that I listened to today, and it was with Steve Albini. And Steve is great, man. He was a man that people thought he was kind of outrageous at times, I guess, but he was really stuck to his morals, stuck to his guns, and knew exactly how he thought the music business should work. And he had some great ideas. So he was talking about this a few things, but sorry, I'm still getting over a cold. But he was talking about how when he was starting out, there was two things he wanted, and that was to be able to play music and to be able to make a living. And they don't have to be exclusive. They don't have to, be together. You don't have to do both. You don't have to make your living music. As long as he could do both, he was happy, right? and he was talking about through all the years he played in bands, from starting with Big Black all the way till the end, he never depended on the band for any type of income, even though they made a pretty good income. He always kept that separate, and even when he started recording and mixing and engineering, he, for the first decade or so, didn't rely on that for a living. And he told this story about how he, as a matter of fact, your job can be fucking garbage. As long as it's paying the bills, that's giving you your personal time to make music or whatever you love to do and be happy. Right? So he was pretty explicit about this story, right? He talked about another article that a guy had written, and how, it actually gives you free time that you don't have to worry about music if you have a job that's outside of music. And Steve talked about how his job, when he was first starting to record music and produce bands, he didn't call himself a producer, but that's what he was doing. His job while he was doing that, before he could make a living doing it, was he was an ad illustrator, or basically like photoshopping ads before Photoshop, doing it, like the old school way, for cigarette ads in magazines or newspapers or on TV even. I'm not sure how he was doing it, but he was making these cigarette ads. He said, I was the lowest common denominator, basically. I was selling people cigarettes and lying to them and doing it, and I knew what I was doing, and I did it so I could fund my music, right? And this is Steve Albini. He's produced Nirvana, done so much music, probably more music than anybody. Everybody goes to Electrical Audio because they'll get a good rate and they want to work with Steve. Or they did, until he passed away. And, so it's just to say, music is hard for everyone right now. And we all some struggle more than others to make any kind of profit at it. But that's not, if you're of an artistic mind, that shouldn't be really the goal anyway. The goal is to be able to just make it and do it with no burdens or pressures. And actually, that's a freer space to create your art in, because you're not relying on it for an income, right? And I listened to this today, and I wasn't expecting to get anything really to use on my podcast tonight, my stream, but that was really great. You know what I mean? Because he didn't hold back anything. He was honest about what he was doing so he could make music. And that was just a great story, and I wanted to share that because, sometimes we put expectations on ourselves or have imposter syndrome or whatever, like, because I'm not making a living at it. And probably very few people are making a living at it. You can make some money out playing live, but that's definitely a struggle, and probably you're going to have a lot more stress if you try to make your living in music right now in this time we're in. Hopefully that changes, but I got this up and rolling very quickly. I should have turned off my digital amp sim. It's over here making noise, but I'm just gonna, I want to show you all screen capture of what the DAW looks like. This is Ableton, and I've got a very kind of hang on, let me get this the right way. I've got a very minimal template going here. This is actually my template I use when I'm making YouTube videos, and just one mic for a dialogue mic, and one guitar track or whatever I'm recording at the time, not for streaming but for actually making videos that I'm gonna put out later. This is what the session looks like. Let me make it a little bigger. Hold on. This is the first time I've done this live. Usually I do the screen capture and add it back in later in the video editor. But you can see here, I actually have this mic track up too high. Let's put it, it doesn't really matter anyway. We're not going through it, but I like my tracks at -18 usually because that leaves plenty of headroom. Gain staging is important. So I have a completely different template with it's got like 12 drum tracks, all kinds of buses, about 8 to 10 guitar tracks, percussion tracks, synth tracks, MIDI tracks for sound library instruments, and it's a big template, but I'm trying to approach this from like a person that's not really that familiar with recording and trying to show how this works. So when you're creating a template in Ableton, the first thing you want to do, like if you get a Focusrite interface, like a 2-channel interface, a lot of times it'll come with Ableton Live Lite, which only gives you 4 tracks and maybe 4 or 8 aux return tracks, send and return tracks. I've just got 3 auxes up here and 2 regular guitar tracks. So when you first load in a template, if you want to create a track, you right click, you hit insert audio track, and then you have a new audio track run from whatever you choose your inputs. I have a lot of inputs jumping around here because of the way I'm streaming, but the guitar is on 5. I usually bring down my level to -18 on the fader, and that's a good place to start, right? This track's just completely empty. I just added it. This one has a few plugins on. This Lindell 80, if we open it up, it looks just like a Neve 1084 or 1073, and it's got the EQ, it's got the compression, and it's got a gate on there. And what is a cool thing to do when you're first getting into recording is to think about your workflow like you're on a console. So, meaning, load up your tracks with, it doesn't even have to be the same, but I usually will go with Neve or SSL, or like if I'm mixing, I go more SSL because there's a lot more EQ points. You can change the Q on the EQ. I like the SSL compression better many times. For drums, I like the API, like 5200, the compression, the API bus compressor. It's on the tip of my tongue right now. I use it all the time, but I use a lot of Plugin Alliance stuff. I use the API from Plugin Alliance. This is the Lindell 80 series from Plugin Alliance. I use UAD, I use Waves, I use plugins are over here. Plugins are great. We're starting to get some thunder, so that adds a cool vibe to the stream too. And if you're watching, leave me something in the chat. Also, let me mention, if you dig recording, if you dig music, if you want to learn how to record, how to play guitar, some theory stuff, or if you just want to hear cool music, I was gonna actually play like one of my finished songs so you can see that I actually can make shit sound good. We might do that here in a minute, but let's just record in like a guitar track really quick. So what else did I want to mention? On the master bus, it's good to have like a bus compressor. I have the SSL bus compressor on here. That gives you a little bit of glue. Actually, I don't have it set like I normally would, but you just want the meter jumping a little bit, or I wouldn't go past 8 for sure, but and you can roll up the sidechain high pass when you're doing drums. makes the compressor not mess with the low end or not get pumping from the low end. And then you want something at the end, preferably with the LUFS meter. This Brainworks Master Desk Pro is great because it has a LUFS meter over here. Streaming will recommend -14. The streaming services, Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Music, all those places, they want you to be around -14. So if you see here it says competitive -14. That's a thing for Dolby Atmos. I don't know if it's -14. I think it's -18, and they stick to that. For streaming in stereo, they don't, I like to have my stuff hitting around -10 to -8. I like it pretty loud, because if you're not in that range, if you're not around -8 for a good percentage of the track, your stuff is going to sound a lot quieter than the track before or the track after it. And nobody wants that, because the way the human ear and your mind perceives music is that louder is better. Even if it's not. Louder just, it's like, that's what it is. It's better because you're hearing everything more clearly. It's almost like the loudness blocks out all the other shit of how the track really sounds, but you still want dynamics in there. So that's the key. You can use other things like parallel compression, clipping, but let's play something and see how this works. This is very, like I said, you're not going to be able to hear the actual track like it sounds in the DAW until I play it back. You're going to hear what I'm hearing in my headphones, which is with the monitoring off, because if I turn the monitoring on, you'll get latency and you'll be hearing it twice. Let me think of this part I was going to play on. Okay, so I've got that. Let's go ahead, and I've got a MIDI controller down here. I just hit record on that, but as long as you have the track armed and hit the space bar, you're going to be recording. So we're going to do that right now. Let me make sure I have the click on. I play to a click, but I don't really quantize. I might show you how to do some quantization stuff, because it's kind of the modern way. But the way I like to make music, where I'm recording real drums and all that, I like the music to have a push and a pull and not be perfectly gridded, because that's the kind of music I like. So let's see. I don't know if I want the delay on or not. Let me see this. Alright, let's leave it on. Try it with the delay on. See what happens. This could be a total crash and burn, podcast, but that's what makes them great, right? Here we go. Messed up, see? So this is just, I'm trying to play like a little groove, nothing crazy, just trying to get a rhythm track. So let's do that again. Let me do another take of that. Hold on. Here we go. So that's just a little something we can listen to. It's got a little groove to it. Let me turn on, because it was very quiet at -18 without any compression on. So let's turn on the compressor. Let's play this back. I hope it doesn't get too poppy. I lowered my sample rate and stuff because we're using some CPU on the stream. I'm going through these two plugins here, and going through what's on the master. I'll show you how like adding aux effects with like reverbs and delays on aux tracks can be cool. But let's just listen to it, what I recorded, except with some high passing from the Neve. We're high passing at 70. That's the only EQ. I've got a gate on just to get out some of the noise. Actually, I'll probably put it on expander. Yeah. And then I've got the UAD LA2A. A lot of times in LA, I'm just using that to get the level up some because I did this really quick test before the live stream started, and cutting on the LA2A, you know, it was very quiet before I did that. So let's just listen. Here we go. So, on that, I didn't realize that I was going to be getting my mic signals too. That's because I'm summing both of these channels down to one channel in the in my Chandler TG2 mic pre's. So what I can do is mute the microphone and play it again. Yeah, let's do that. Let's try it one more time and see if we like it better with no microphone. I'm getting a lot of string rattle from this G string. I did some work to my guitar where I filed the nut and I filed it a little too close. Usually it doesn't bother me, but I think I'm playing a little extra hard tonight. So let's try it again. Alright, let's listen to that back. Here we go. So anyway, I'm still out of tune on that G. I should have got that right. But you can see how when you track in, you just want to play to the click track. It's a simple process. And then we can, let me get it. Let me tune this guitar a little bit really quick. So it's a crazy humid night tonight and storming outside, and my guitar is not wanting to stay in tune, but hey, that's the fun of the live stream, right? So let's do it one more time. Let's play let's do something like that. Alright, let's listen to that, see what it sounds like. So I'm just messing with Echo Boy on Oxen. I already had some delay going, but I just wanted you to hear like some, some effects. Let's put Echoplex on. Let's do note times eighth and quarter, and just a little bit of feedback and see. This live stream is messing with my dog. So that's the Lexicon reverb, a lot of reverb. High passing. So let's work with this sound a little bit. Let's put a SSL channel on. That way I can change the high pass filter, because I'm getting a lot of low end on that. Like I said, man, recording goes much easier when you're not trying to live stream, but you know, that's part of it. I'm working all this shit out too. The good thing about whoa, now we've got sirens going by. You know, that's not really ironic. It's just like how it goes, you know, when you're trying to do something new. But I'm gonna actually delete all these other takes of what I played, because we don't need them. And let's just do a little bit of EQ, and I'm gonna take the Neve off. Let's see what we have with this high pass filter up around 94. So, the high pass isn't like, it's a good idea to high pass. You know, some people might say don't high pass your guitars, but usually when you're building up a lot of tracks, you're gonna have mud in there, and the more things you high pass is good. I like to cut a lot of around 362 just on a narrow cue. A lot of times it'll make it sound better, even drums and stuff like that. It'll 360, 350 is a frequency where things, you know, muddy frequencies, that real low mid-range builds up. Let me listen to this one more time. I should have recorded it with no delay. Just start shaping your sounds. You know, that's something very simple that I just played there, but the point of this video, of this stream, is to just get you recording. I brought in the SSL EQ. I meant to bring in just an SSL channel so I could have a little more control. We might do that real quick in a minute, but you know, there's a lot of cool, you can do a lot of crazy stuff with just something like that. Like, these Sound Toys plugins are killer, you know what I mean? Like, let me put, just for shits and giggles, let me put the Filter Freak on that track, like I was doing with the synth parts that I played at the beginning. We'll just do like sweep filter, you know. This one's cool, and let's listen to how it sounds with this Filter Freak on. The way you order your plugins too is important. You know, usually you want a mic preamp at first if you're gonna use one. I like to most of the time use EQ before compression, and then this Filter Freak a lot of the time I like before compression, because it'll change stuff with the level and the dynamics. So I like to get the compression, getting all that right at the end. But this is just like, it's almost makes it, it's gonna make it synthy sounding. So let's just hear, you know, you can really destroy sounds and make great sounding shit. You know, there's a lot, like, it's good to get your part right the way you want it and be done with it. But it's also good if if you have a few parts and you think, I might not use that, don't get rid of stuff completely, because you never know when you might be like, damn, I wish I had that part back. I could have done something cool with it. It's important to keep, as long as your ideas are flowing in a way that's consistent with the project, then an idea that you think, oh, maybe that's not working, well, wait till the end, and then even at the end, sometimes you'll use it on another project. So that's one thing I've learned kind of the hard way with recording is don't delete, don't undo, don't delete. Now, takes, I don't like, I was recording in those takes, I don't like to let takes build up, because it takes up CPU and space, and just makes the session messy. But if I have a part laid out and I decide I'm not going to use that part, or I don't think I'm going to use that part, I still keep the parts. Like, I'll do another arrangement further over in the session. So Ableton, let me toggle between. Ableton also has this this view right here, which is the session view. We were in arrangement view, and this looks more like faders on the console. And you can play in parts. I'm mostly in the other way, the arrangement view, because that's how it works. But this way, you can see that all of these little slots are like scenes. So you can play a scene in on different instruments, all on the same space across, horizontally, and play those together, and that's your part. You can loop and do different things this way, so you're not actually committing to the arrangement until you record the parts from this session view into the arrangement view. I like to just go ahead and record them into the arrangement view, but some of you might like to work this way. It's a different way to work. I started out this way, but very quickly I went to arrangement view, and if something's not working, I go on to the next thing. A lot of times I'll, just close the session, put that idea away, and go on to something else. But let's listen to this part with the filter freak on. So that was cool. Like, I dig that. You know what I mean? And it's very, like, it doesn't get any more simple on the guitar parts. I was just playing something just to record something in, and that's cool. And then, like, let's see. I could probably put something over that, something else. And normally I would be going through amps, using different amps for different parts, like on the left and right. Let's pan that to the left and maybe play something that we're going to record on the right. And I will switch guitars real quick to do that. I don't even know what I'm going to play, but I'll play with the track for a minute and see what we get. this track, getting my level up there, so it would be a lot more quiet. Let's put another plugin on. Let's put that SSL, but this time the channel strip, and boost some level or compression into it. So SSL channel mono. So let's see. I'm gonna high pass this as well. We'll do about 80, and we'll do a little bit of a. Let's go to 7. Do a little bit of a bell curve. Just get some level up. This is just, jumping in, seeing what we get. So let's go boost some mid-range on this too. Let's do that. Let's see how this sounds. So definitely not perfect, but you can see the point, and that's the way I like to record stereo guitars, is to have a different part on either side. Sometimes I'll double, an exact double with a different guitar, but I find when you got different things going on either side, it's what I find interesting in music. It's the way I record. This live stream's been a little bit of a shit show, but it's how I work. I kind of maybe dumbed down the guitar a little bit, just because I'm not going through amps. I didn't have time to really work out parts or anything, but just to show you how things work, I wanted to play some things and actually do this. So a lot of times I'll make also a guitar, like run everything to buses, so you can insert another audio track. And on this track I'll usually leave the level around 0, and you put the input on in, but it's picking up my mic. So what I usually do is put the input on, and let me change it to no input. Actually, that's what's messing me up. No input. And so you run these to this bus, right? Which would be for audio. And you would rename it, like, we'll do that. Name it guitar bus. Rename. So session organization is very important. Guitar bus. So there it is. Now you can see that these tracks are going to the guitar bus right here and right here. And then you can do like global things. One of the global things I like to do is put this Abbey Road mastering on it. And this, we use the stereo plugin of this. It's got EQ, compression, tape, like tape EQ. So you can get some more, and limiter. You can get some more. We'll move this filter over here, maybe, if it'll do it. You can get some more general, global things going on. Let's see if I can move this over. Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. Right there. And then, so now we've got high pass and low pass and some presence right here. And then we've got EQ. This is like the TG EQ from Abbey Road, which is like the preamps, the analog preamps I'm using in my rack. But it's the EQ for those. And then we have the TG console compressor. I think it's the TG 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it's different. But, Chandler makes this gear, and Waves does the plugins. and it sounds killer. You also have a stereo spreader. I like to sometimes mess with that, get it a little bit wider. People say it messes with the phase, but I think that this TG Abbey Road Waves plugin doesn't really seem to like make me lose frequencies or make things smaller or anything that I've noticed. So let's listen, just going through that with a little bit of high pass again. So, and maybe a little bit of top end boost. We'll do 2 dB at 10K, or at, let's see, yeah, 10K. And let's listen. So everything's going to be going through this bus. We turned this monitoring input to in, and now I'm not getting the microphone because I had it on input 1. You know, I'm working out all the routing and everything as we go because I'm never usually running my sessions at the same time that I'm trying to live stream. So let's just listen. So yeah, those parts ain't doing what I want, but you know, we're getting some parts in there showing how tracking is done. You know, let me take this back off. I might try and re-record. So let's see. I don't know if this is where I want everything. Let me look. Oh, that's on the one. So I could probably stretch a little bit of this where I rushed it. And instead of stretching it, a lot of times I like to just make the cuts like you would in tape. Like here at the end, it's coming in a little bit early. So let's do that. Let's treat this like a real session, not just trying to give a general thing. So yeah, I came in a whole quarter note early on that, right? So let's cut. I think I did. Let's see. Yeah, okay, so that put that better in a better place. Let's see where I am here. Yeah, that's early too. If I put these on the 1, this isn't quantizing, but this is cutting and getting your parts where you want them. So it's a different thing than quantizing or stretching, but you've got to join these up in a way or not. We might actually, let's see how the rest of the track works. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So that looks pretty good. Alright, let me see where this one comes in. If I'm just a little early, I don't mind it too much. But if I'm like an 1/8 note or quarter note early, I don't dig that at all. And like the streaming and everything will, and also recording with plugins on, even if you're direct monitoring, sometimes, especially when I'm doing drums, it seems to, the latency will make the parts early, actually, because it's taking time to go through the system and you're playing before it does that. So let's see if I can link these things up in a way that, so I could stretch this a little bit over, let's do that, And go down here for this section, and we're gonna just pull this last part over. Let's see. Okay, yeah. And then I could possibly do this and this. Trying to get these things lined up a little bit better. If we go on this track and stretch this back just a little bit like that. Let's see how that blends. So it's a cool way to edit. Ableton's great because you can do this. So those look like they're hitting on the one. This I don't really want like that. I want to crossfade it. So that's how you can edit a little bit. Now, if we listen to these, where the filter freak's coming in should be on every 2 bars. So, but it still should be coming in on the 1. It shouldn't sound as glitchy. Let's listen. So it's a little better. Let me try to track with that. It's still not perfect, but it's something I can live with. So let's try real quick to play what I played earlier. See if we can get it a little better. Alright, now let's listen and see what we got. So you can hear there it's a little more to the grid, but not perfect still, which that's more like along the lines of rock and roll, you know, stuff I can live with. So, you know, it's not been a perfect demonstration, but I've shown how to, you know, get a couple tracks armed and, you know, pulled up and armed, and put some plugins on and start making a template. Now what you want to do to save your template is you don't want all these tracks in there, but when you have have a session the way you want it, you can go in and in Ableton you don't have playlisting like you hear people talk about in Pro Tools. They have playlists where they can do 100 different mixes in playlists and save them that way. What you have to do in Ableton is do a save as. So if you go up here, you can see this is under file. You would go to save as and save your set with all the music that you've recorded. And if you want to do a template, you save as, save all of that music so you don't lose it, whatever you've played. Save it, then go back into the session. You don't really have to go back in because you're saving as, and it'll still be up there. Take everything off, and you have to go in and go to all of your takes, which it will say, take lanes in Ableton. Show take lanes, and all these take lanes, because they'll show up in your template. Delete all those, right? And for anywhere, and actually delete the parts too, because you have it saved, right? And then save your template. Now, I recommend doing this. Like, I didn't save a template really till I had my drums set up the way I wanted. I saved this YouTube template with just one mic and one guitar track, because that's the way I worked a lot for my videos. But get the template the way you want it, and it's a thing that you can slowly build up over time, always, and you see here under file, save live set as template, and you can save one as the default set. So when you just open up Ableton, it'll be your default set. That's where I have my big template with all of my tracks that I use for recording music. And even though stuff is in the template, you don't have to have it armed. You can unarm it and just activate stuff as needed. Put the plugins on that you like to use pretty frequently. Arm those maybe, or arm some of them. You know how you work. Do what's good for you. It's going to save you a lot of time to have a template. Maybe I'll play a track really quick just to let you hear some of my work. Hold on. Let me do that before we roll out. Let me pull up a track, and I'll just make this screen bigger. We'll listen to something that I've done so you can hear that not all my recordings are as rough as they were tonight. So let's get a track going. And how about I'll leave you with this, and then we'll sign off. Also, I want to say, like, subscribe, leave me a comment, tell me what you think about this song. We'll do, let's see, this is called let's do this one. This is called Zoo. Artist is Thirsty Deer. This is Zoo. Here, I'll give you all the video for it as well. So let's just pull this display capture up here, and I'll pull the video up.